Welcome to the PreSnap Podcast presented by LineStar. Alongside my co-host Tyler Wiemann, I'm Shannon Sommerville. And today, who doesn't love handing out some hardware before the season even starts? We're talking about season awards for this 2024 NFL season and looking at some of the odds in the sports books for the various categories in league winners. So for today, something to look at and just chat about as we head into the season. The season is fast approaching. And by the way, if you haven't checked out our new best ball tool on the LineStar app, I highly recommend you do so. Hope you guys are crushing it out there in all of your best ball drafts and getting ready for that fantasy football draft as well. But today we're talking about some awards, some interesting, when we looked at the different odds, there were a lot of things that jumped out, a lot of interesting odds. So I think today's conversation will be a good one in terms of just kind of talking about some value that you can find in some of these futures markets. What do you think, Tyler? Anything?
Yeah, I think so. And anytime you're going to make a bet on like these awards, there is one way consistently that like the reporters are voting on them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to kind of declare that before we make bets and then go with that with some value and hope for the best.
All right. So before we get into it, if you could do us a huge favor right now and like this video, also make sure you're subscribed to the LineStar YouTube channel and then comment below. Let us know who you think is taking home some of this hardware at the end of this season. We've got some good ones. We're going to start things off with Offensive Rookie of the Year. And when I looked at this one, Tyler, right now, obviously Caleb Williams is the clear favorite. And I actually looked up, over the course of the last 10 years, actually quarterbacks haven't always won it. In fact, my guy Garrett Wilson of the Jets won it just a few years ago. So kind of an interesting award, even though Caleb's the favorite at plus 135, doesn't seem like great value from a betting perspective.
Well, yeah, I think this spot is an interesting one. As you said, Caleb is the clear favorite. And I would say Jaden Daniels, he is second at, I think he's plus 550 or 600 right now. And he really has just as good of a shot as Caleb. So I think betting on Caleb and plus 135, I just don't quite get it. You're locking up your money for, 6 months or so. So I would rather go with one of the longer shots. I think Jaden Daniels is a great bet, but I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. plus 650. He has a really good QB in Kyler. He is a clear number one for this team at Ohio State. He was got double covered like 70% of the time and still had great success rates. In the NFL, that's just not going to be the case. He's not going to be double covered that much. They don't do it as much in the NFL. And I think he's going to be able to win versus single coverage more often than not. And Arizona's defense is going to be absolutely terrible. They're going to need to score lots of points. They're going to need to get a lot of yards. And I think the clear path to him winning is the Bears, Commanders, both finishing under 500, while Harrison gets 1,400 yards, 6 to 8 TDs. That would make him one of the better wide receivers this year in the league. And I think there's fully a path to that. And I don't fully buy into the Bears being good or the Commanders being good. So I think there's a clear path to somebody other than those two quarterbacks winning it.
And that's a really good point you make when you're thinking about who's voting on this. It's going to be the media. And what does the media love? A good story. And when you're talking about quarterbacks, they genuinely don't love quarterbacks, even if they're putting up stats, like great counting stats, if they're not winning, generally speaking, they're not going to vote for them for this particular award. When you look at the last 10 years, in fact, only 4 of the last 10 offensive rookie of the years have been quarterbacks. So I like your play here to go with a wide receiver and one that has just insane amount of ends. That offense is going to be pretty electric. So I'm actually going in a similar direction, but I'm going to the New York Giants and their new electric wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, 14-1 odds to win this thing. So I like a little bit of a long shot here. Malik Neighbors is just like an electric wide receiver and had just an insane last year of his college career, 9 games out of 13. He had over 100 receiving yards, and he just was unbelievable. And when you look at the quarterback play, I know this will be like a detriment to him playing with Daniel Jones. However, when you look at who's won it a couple of years ago, Garrett Wilson was able to take home this award with really subpar quarterback play with the likes of Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Zach Wilson as his quarterback. So I think Malik Neighbors could be a surprise here at plus 1,400. decent odds, and so far supposedly looking awesome in training camp. So I like those two, both of those actually, Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors. Not a bad bet for offensive rookie of the year. Either way, I think it's going to be exciting to see which receivers start to emerge as the big time fantasy studs too. What about you?
Absolutely. And I like both those bets a lot. And the fact that one's 6.5 to 1 and the other was 14 to 1. I mean, you can just bet both of them. And if one of them hit, you're still up
Yeah.
big time. So I don't mind that play whatsoever. You just gotta hope, the quarterbacks aren't winning games.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only scenario I could see
Mhm.
if they kind of surprise everyone and are winning a ton of games. Although the Bears are expected to win a little bit, but the Commanders, I just thought, you know what, Jaden Daniels, I just don't think they're going to win a ton of games right out the gate. I think the win total for them this season's at like 6.5, so it just doesn't appeal to me that much from a betting perspective. But let's talk about MVP. Who you got for this award? Now, it was interesting to see the odds for this one. Patrick Mahomes is your front runner here, but CJ Stroud right behind him, plus 850. And then you have Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts. But some interesting names there. Lamar Jackson, who won it last year, is he's 15 to 1 right now. So what do you make of these odds, and what do you think is the best bet here?
Yeah, well, what we've seen from this award in, the last few years is it's pretty much just been a quarterback on one of the best teams award. If CMC couldn't win it last year, I don't think it's going to anybody other than a quarterback. So I'm throwing
Mhm.
everybody else off. I'm going to go Josh Allen plus 900. He has a new wide receiver core. Everybody says, the talent's way down on the team and people are kind of losing faith in the Bills, but I don't quite think that's the case. I think he is going to have addition by subtraction. He has more guys that he can get the ball to that can find targets. And with that, I think he is going to play better and that offense is going to work just as well. And all that we really need to have happen is Bills finish with one of the better records. It's clearly Josh Allen, bringing them to that spot. And with the perception preseason as the Bills not being as good, all they got to do is keep doing what they've been doing and Josh Allen, pull his weight. And he is very much in consideration for this award. And plus 900, I think it's just too long of odds for that.
Yeah, when you consider kind of the storyline heading into this season is, can he do it? Can he be the gunslinger without Stephon Diggs there? I think the answer is yes, like you mentioned, and I
Mhm.
think that's a great call there. But for me, Tyler, I can't not pass up 15 to 1 odds for the defending MVP Lamar Jackson, especially when you consider the fact that he has won it twice in the last 5 seasons. This is his second year with offensive coordinator Todd Monken, so he's going to be more familiar with this system. Also, his top target, Mark Andrews, the tight end, was injured most of last year. He was out 7 games. And then you've also got Zay Flowers in his second season in the system. They also brought over Derrick Henry, such a bruiser, and I'll take a little bit of the pressure off Lamar Jackson there, running the ball. Drafted Tez Walker, who I like as an exciting receiver from UNC. Also, the only thing that concerns me here with Lamar Jackson is the fact that their offensive line ranks 25th. They do have a good center, but they lost 3 starters. So they've got a lot of young, unproven talent on that offensive line. But you're talking about Lamar Jackson, one of the most elusive quarterbacks there are. So I think Lamar Jackson does it again. And at his price tag right now, I kind of like those odds. I think their offense will be even improved from last year. So I'm excited to see what happens with Lamar going into this season. What do you make of Lamar Jackson in that offense this season?
I mean, the offense is
Mhm.
in a better spot than we've really seen it in years. So it's definitely an interesting spot. My only worry is are the Riders going to give it to him 2 years in a row? That's my
Yeah,
big question with Lamar. Outside of that, I mean, 15 to 1 for the guy that just won it. Like, come
no,
on.
it's pretty good value there, and they gave it to Aaron Rodgers in back-to-back years, I
Mhm.
believe. So it's not like they don't do it ever, but like you said, they always like a new face on the award. So I do agree with that there is some kind of like recency bias with the awards voters. So that's a good point there for that award. All right, now let's talk about Offensive Player of the Year. What do you think about this one? Last year, of course, it went to Christian McCaffrey. Right now, Tyreek Hill, though, has the best odds to win this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this one pretty much comes down to the best non-quarterback. This one is the wide receivers, tight end, running back kind of award. And I think the best value on the board right now is Bijan Robinson at plus 2,000. I think he's really the only running back outside of CMC that can push for 2,000 yards this season. He could do so much with the ball, running it in the passing game. And all that really needs to happen is Tyreek, CD, CMC, just not quite get there from a yardage standpoint. Bijan can get there. And 20 to 1 is just too long of odds for a guy of his talent in a new offense with Raheem Mostert and Kirk Cousins. I think the ball is going to go through him in this offense. So I like the spot.
Yeah, Raheem Morris, the head coach, has even said, their game plan is basically to give him the ball and utilize him just like the 49ers use Christian McCaffrey. So CMC won it last year. It's not a bad bet to bet Bijan as well. So I'm also going with a running back, but I had to throw in a Jets pick here. Breece Hall at 15 to 1 odds. I love this value here. Last year, he ranked 13th in rushing yards, despite having kind of a limited workload out of the gate. He was 1 year removed from ACL surgery, so they kind of eased him into the season. He was also working behind one of the most miserable offensive lines I've seen in recent history, with a miserable quarterback situation as well. So they improved the offensive line. 3 new starters. In fact, PFF just ranked them the 5th best offensive line. And since entering the league, he leads all backs in yards per carry after contact and yards per route run. And he actually has a better yards per route run rate than CMC, despite playing in that bottom 3 situation. And the fact that last year he was recovering from that ACL surgery. And what we've traditionally seen with running backs is it's their second season removed from ACL surgery that they get that significant burst back. So Breece Hall is a really good bet. I think that offense is just going to be kind of running the ball a lot. I know they have Aaron Rodgers there, but I think kind of the game plan for the Jets is going to be to rely on that defense. And the offense isn't going to have to do a whole lot, which is also why I veered away from, of course, a Homer Jets Aaron Rodgers pick for MVP as well. But I like Breece Hall here in a nice spot. I think he's going to get a heavy workload. We're going to get a heavy dose of Breece Hall this season. What do you think about Breece Hall?
Yeah, Breece Hall's in a great spot. And I think that Jets offense is going to be, just with Aaron Rodgers behind, going to be so crazily improved that it's hard to, pick against Breece.
Yeah. So, but a lot of interesting players here to kind of choose from. But I like where we're headed with our running backs here. Now let's talk about Coach of the Year. Last season, it was the Cleveland Browns head coach, Kevin Stefanski, who really just did a lot. They had dealt with so much adversity from their star running back, Nick Chubb, going down, and then he had Deshaun Watson go down, and somehow they were able to make their way into the playoffs. Just an unbelievable job from him. But who do you think this year could take this Coach of the Year award?
Yeah, this is an interesting award because it doesn't necessarily go to the team with the best record. It's generally a team that has some sort of, season outlook that people aren't sure about. Maybe they, going to be a sub 500 team, but then they largely overachieve and are one of the better teams in the NFL. With that, I think it's a guy that hasn't ever won this award, but has never had a losing season. Mike Tomlin plus 2,500 to win is just crazy to me. It's wild to me that he hasn't won. He's expected to finish last in his division, but I think there's a clear path where he can win the division. Say we have Justin Fields starting, that offense looks way better. We know if TJ Watt stays healthy, that defense is exciting and can really cause some problems. And really all that needs to happen is, say, Lamar, which he has had a history of injuries, gets a little banged up, They don't win quite as many games. And then I think Pittsburgh completely has a path to trying to win this division. Now, it's a long shot, but we're trying to bet 25-1. So I think it's an interesting one to take.
Yeah, and crazy that he's never won it. I didn't even realize that
It's
until you wrote
wild.
that on our sheet, and pretty incredible. I think that if there is a year for him to win it, it would be this year. As you said, the media likes kind of that comeback story, that facing adversity and being able to kind of figure out just how to win games. And Mike Tomlin is a guy that can do it, and he has had a lot of adversity. I mean, look at they had to bring in a like new offensive coordinator, new quarterback situation. Is it going to be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? But if there's anyone that can put the pieces together there, it's definitely Mike Tomlin. So I like the pick here. For my pick, though, I'm going to a new head coach, and that's the head coach of the Falcons, Raheem Morris, 13-1 odds. Hey, anytime you pass on Bill Belichick means you've got faith in the guy you're bringing in Morris. And he was with the Falcons actually in a lot of different roles from 2015 to 2020. So he's got a lot of familiarity with the organization. And when you look at the 3 seasons as defensive coordinator of the Rams, love that he's in that Sean McVay coaching tree. He spearheaded that defense during the Super Bowl and looking to get the Falcons back to the postseason for the first time since 2017. So that would just be an awesome story in itself. And when you look at the NFC South, it's been a complete mess. The Bucks won it last year with a 9-8 record, and now you've got a decent shot at it with Kirk Cousins in the mix. You got Bijan coming in, Drake London, just a lot of weapons on offense. I think this is a really exciting team to watch in a division that has been horrible. So really a good shot at winning it here with the Atlanta Falcons. So I like Raheem Morris and just like the excitement when you look at kind of what he did with the Rams too. He yes, he had that Super Bowl defense, but then they kind of had to completely rebuild, and he was able to get the best out of a lot of young defensive players early on. And the Rams were a great defense. So I like what he was able to do with the Rams, and I think that will translate to the Atlanta Falcons with a pretty good, team in place already. So let's go Morris here. I also don't hate Shane Steichen as well. I think that's kind of a fun thing to watch as well. When you look at Anthony Richardson and what he brings to the table, Shane Steichen's a bit of a quarterback whisperer. When you saw what he did with Jalen Hurts and how kind of Jalen Hurts has struggled a little bit in his absence, I kind of think that speaks to the overall coaching ability of Shane Steichen. So that's not a bad play as well. But for my pick, I'm putting my money on Morris there. What do you think about the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, I like the Atlanta Falcons, and that leads to the next one for my pick. But also going back to Steichen, I think Steichen's a really interesting one, and your boy Robert Saleh is also an interesting one. So I don't mind really going to any of them.
The only thing with Saleh, though, that I'm like, is he really the coach, or is it Aaron Rodgers that gets the coach of the year for
Well,
that?
yes, and that is the thing. But if this team is really good and they win a lot of games, I think there's no way that voters will vote for Aaron Rodgers to be comeback player of the year. I just don't think any media is going to vote for Aaron Rodgers for any award just because he's been so divisive over the last couple of years. Because of that, it just could be forced upon them that some Jet needs to win, and coach of the year, I think, is a possibility.
Hey, and managing the personality of Aaron Rodgers is a feat in of itself. So, and managing the New York media along with that. So, next up, we've got comeback player of the year. What do you think here? This is very much a storyline, overcoming the odds type of. It's usually like the best, most significant storyline of a player, overcoming the biggest of odds. What do you think?
And I mean, it's a great thing that you said that right there, because we just talked about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is clearly, in line to win this award, but I just don't think there's any way they're going to give it to him. He would have to play like MVP caliber or be in the MVP running for them to give him this award. I think it would have to be kind of forced on them. And with that, I think Kirk Cousins has the same exact story, but in a new offense, new coach, new situation, and that he could easily win it at plus 500. And he doesn't have, that negative kind of media around him. So I think Kirk Cousins, and if he wins it, your coach of the year in Raheem Morris,
Morris.
becomes very interesting. Just kind of parlay, I don't actually parlay them. I mean, it's 2 long
Yeah.
shots. You can if you want, but it's just a little crazy to do. But look, there's a clear line. I think that it's either Rodgers, Burrow, Cousins, or Richardson for me. I think there's too many quarterbacks in the running for this award for it not to be a quarterback. Cincinnati has a really tough division. Richardson he's only been in the league 1 year, but he's got hurt twice in 4 games. So there's clearly possibly health concerns of how much he's going to run. The Falcons have a clear path to win the division. The offense should be upgraded big time with Kirk and the new scheme. He has tons of weapons to throw to. So I like Kirk Cousins' outlook. I've been drafting a ton of them in best ball. And I think at plus 500 for comeback player of the year, there's a clear path for him.
Yeah, and tons of weapons to throw to. I know he comes from an offense that had a pretty good weapon in Justin Jefferson, and now he's got Drake London, he's got Kyle Pitts, and of course Bijan Robinson. So definitely in a good spot that'll help him ease back into at least the start of the season from that recovery standpoint. Now, for my pick, though, I kind of like he's sort of a shiny new name, and that's Anthony Richardson. Yes, we saw him kind of burst out on the scene, but we really only saw 4 games out of him. But he was pretty phenomenal. Plus 600 are his odds to win this one. He was the first quarterback to rush for a touchdown in his first career 3 starts. Loved him from a fantasy perspective, but we really only saw 4 games from him. Supposedly, he made some changes to his throwing motion, so you'll see a difference in his passing game a little bit. And I'm sure what they're trying to do, too, is to try to take the pressure off him in the run game, so make him throw the ball a little bit more. And he's going into a very good offense. Jonathan Taylor at running back, wide receivers, Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, even though he has a high ankle sprain right now. He also brought in A.D. Mitchell, great wide receiver that one time played for Georgia and helped them win a national championship. Also, Kylan Granson at tight end. So that's another really good offense. And you're talking about his head coach, Shane Steichen, who's a quarterback whisperer. And I think if anyone can kind of mold a young quarterback and guide him to success, it's going to be Shane Steichen, who did the same exact thing with Jalen Hurts. And I think right now, just the fact that Jalen Hurts and that Philadelphia Eagles offense has struggled without Shane Steichen just lends itself to just how crucial he was and how crucial he will be for Anthony Richardson. So I like the play here. It's also just a great story. I mean, a player we haven't seen a lot of either in college or the pros. So I think everyone's really excited to see what he actually brings to the table with a complete season under his belt. Like you said, there are some health concerns, but if he does stay healthy and complete a full season, I think it'll be a pretty fun one to watch, especially under Shane Steichen, who has done a good job with quarterbacks in his career. What do you think about Richardson?
Yeah, I mean, Richardson is one of the guys that has a clear path, I think, and he can definitely do it. His dual threat ability is pretty outstanding. And I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to turn a lot of heads this year.
When you look at the other odds, Joe Burrow is one that pops out to me, but I think it's like not that. I think when you look at this, a lot of this is so storyline driven, and like we already know Joe Burrow's awesome, right? And so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that big of a surprise to see him back to this level of success he was experiencing prior to his injury. And then I like Kirk Cousins, as you said, with Aaron Rodgers, who's the favorite right now. Yeah, there is a little bit of media that might be a little fatigued with Aaron Rodgers, but Nick Chubb is in there as well. I don't know. I'm a little concerned about Nick Chubb. That was a
Yeah.
really devastating knee injury, and he
Yeah.
has already suffered knee injuries in his past. So I'm not sure that he'll be able to sustain the level of success that we saw before he got hurt. And then some of the
I
other
don't think
guys
he's
don't
going to
really,
play enough
pop
either.
out. Yeah, exactly. So,
Mhm.
which is another huge factor in this.
The only non-quarterback that I could see winning this would be TJ Watt, but I think that if he has, the season that he needs to win it, then he's going to win defensive player of the year. I mean, he's on the verge of sack records and there's so much storyline stuff that could build up for him. But I just think that if he is going to win this one, he would probably win defensive player of the year over this.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, that's a look at some of our picks. We'll have to check back with this at the end of the season and see how close we were in some of these categories. But just excited for football to start. Tyler, the Jets kick off tomorrow at noon against the Washington Commanders. So we'll get to see some actual football being played, which is great. But the season is right around the corner. And best ball drafting season at least, got to get drafting. And if you haven't already checked out the LineStar Best Ball tool, I highly recommend you do so. It doesn't just have rankings. I mean, you could also adjust the rankings to how you like them and then export them directly into your draft, which is so awesome. I've been doing that. And then the feature that I like the best is that playoffs map that shows you all the implied point totals over the last several weeks of the season, which is so crucial, of course, for fantasy football. You want to see the teams that have the highest implied point totals, so you can make sure to get players that are in the best possible situations in the playoffs. So make sure to check that out at linestarapp.com when you get a second. And also let us know where you think some of these awards are going to go. Let us know in the comments. And if you could, just like this video, subscribe to the channel. It helps out our algorithm and it helps you stay up to date with all the content we've got coming out. So good luck in all your best ball drafts. I'm so excited for football. Let's get it going. See you guys.